Let's say I'm building a wiki-style application where I have a page model, and notice I'm on the show action of a given page. And with a wiki, anyone can come and edit a single page and just say anything they want on that page. But one significant feature I'm missing here is the ability to go back in the history and see the previous edits to this given page. And for that, we need some kind of versioning solution for models. Now, in the third episode of the Ruby 5 podcast, I heard about a plugin which can help us with this. Let me get the name right. It's called Vestal Versions. Anyway, this can help us by storing the previous changes to a given model. And I find it to be a little bit cleaner than some of the earlier versioning plugins. You can find the installation instructions on the GitHub page, which I'll link to in the show notes. And so we'll just need to copy and paste this line into our environment config file, which I have open right here, and just paste this in. So that's easy enough. And then you could just run the rake gems install command to ensure that gem is installed. And then you can see we need to run this generator command to create a migration file. So we just paste that into our command line, and what this migration does is create a versions table. So we can run dbmigrate to create that table. And this stores all the versioning information all in one place, which is a pretty nice feature of this gem. And then we just go into whatever model we want to be versioned and just type versioned inside of it. And there we go. Now all changes to this model will be tracked inside of that versions table. For our first task, let's simply display the current version number next to the edit link on the show action page here. And so here's what the view template looks like. And what we want to do is next to this edit link, just add a version is page.version. And you just call version on a model that's versioned to access the current version number. So we'll try hitting reload here, and notice it's not quite working. We just get version and without a number next to it. And that's because models that already existed before you added the Vestal version gem don't get a version applied to them. So we can fix that by just updating all the existing models, which will generate a version for it. Now we could do this through the console if we just want to change our development, but we want to make sure a version is set for every place this code might be copied to or deployed to. So I'm going to do this through a migration. Now I don't normally like creating migration files for modifying record attributes or creating records or anything like that, but here I think is a good exception where we're just updating the existing records in order to establish a version, initial version for it. So let's say version existing pages. And here's our empty migration file. And so when we're migrating, what we want to do is just update all of the pages. And with Rails 2.3.3 or later, you could just do page.find each, and then just call touch on each of those. And touch will just update the current updated at timestamp, which will trigger the versioning creation if you're using Vestal versions. Now also, if you want to say something to the prompt or to the terminal as this command is running, you could just say call say with time instead of a migration, and let's say setting initial version for pages, and then just place this inside of this block here, and that way when this command finishes executing it will report out the current time. So now we can run rake dbmigrate, and let's check this out. There we go, setting initial versions. Didn't take very long because there's not many pages. It just touched each page, which will make the current version established on it. So now if we go back to our application and reload this page here, check that out. Now it's at version 1. So we have a version for all the current pages that have already existed. So now let's try editing this page and then changing some text in here. Say, have fun. Submit this. And now check that out. It's on version 2 because we've made some changes. It would be nice though if we could go back and see the previous version. So what we want to do is add a link here for previous version. So back to our show template, we want to first add a condition here to see if the page version is currently greater than 1. And that way we know there's a previous version. So let's say we want to link to previous version, and then what do we put as the URL here? Well, we want to go to the same exact page we're on, but simply add a new parameter to the URL of version, and then just go to page.version -1. And now inside of our page's controller show action, we can use that version parameter to go to that version of the page. And Vestal Versions provides a method called revert to, and then you can just pass it the version number you want to revert to. In this case, it's params version. However, there's a little gotcha here. Params version will return a string representation of the version number, but we want an integer. It needs to be a number to work inside of Vestal Versions. But we only want to do this if their version parameter is specified anyway. So now when we reload this page, we now have a previous version link, which when we click it, notice the words "have fun" here are changed to "enjoy," and our version number is changed to 1. So now we need a link to go to the current version of the page that is the latest version, so that we can get back to the original. So back to our show template, let me first add a little divider here so the link is a little bit separate. And the current version or latest version link, we only want it to show up if params version is specified. And then we can just add a link to latest version. And to access that, we're just going to specify version parameter as nil, which will remove that attribute from the URL, the current URL. And hit reload now, and check that out. Latest version, click it, and it removes the version parameter from the URL and gives us back to version 2, where we can go previous version and jump back and forth between them. Pretty cool. There are a number of other things that you can do with Vestal Versions, and to show you this, I'll go in the console here, and let's just first fetch a page. And by the way, what I'm using to display that kind of pretty output is called HIRB, which I'll link to in the show notes if you want to use that. And as you can see, we have a page here, and you can call versions on this. Now, versions is actually set up as an active record association, and versions in itself is its own model. So this maps to the versions table, which we created with that migration. So this way we can loop through all pages of versions and display them in a list if we wanted to, and link to each one. Another thing we could do is call revert to on this. And now remember, before I showed you that you could just pass a version number into this if you want, but another neat thing you could do is pass in a date or time. And this will allow you to revert to a specific version which was current at that specific time. So let's say 7 minutes ago. And then let's get the content of this specific page, and then you can see that it ends with the word enjoy, which was the first version of the page. Another thing you could do is pass in certain symbols in here. You could do first or last for one thing. So you could say revert to last, and that'll revert to the latest version. So you could say page.content, and there you can see it says have fun at the end. So a few different things that you can pass into that revert to method, which are quite handy. Well, and that wraps up this episode. As you can see, Vestal Versions is a great way to handle any kind of versioning situation that you might come across where you need to keep track of the history of a model as it's changed in the database. This episode is sponsored in part by RubyMine, a Rails IDE with intelligent code completion, refactorings, debugger, and much more. You can also preview the next version, which includes many new features. Check it out at jetbrains.com/Ruby. Also sponsored by ClutterPad, an awesome online project management and collaboration tool. Sign up now and get a chance to use it at clutterpad.com.